At 9:47 p.m., a 4-star general set a crystal award down on the podium and said, "I can't present this award." 280 guests stopped breathing at the same time. You could hear ice settle in the water glasses. You could hear, 40 feet above the dance floor, the 1,943 steermen they'd hung from the ballroom ceiling, a canary yellow trainer that hadn't flown since Truman, strung up on cables as decoration creak once against its wires. My father stood 3 feet from the general with his acceptance speech in both hands. My father, the CEO. The man who had just spent $2 million to be named Patriot of the Year, and one sentence to erase me in front of all 280 of them. My fiancé was still on his feet at table 28, in the back, by the kitchen doors. Dress uniform. Jaw set. He had said exactly 2 sentences, and now the whole room was doing a math problem it didn't have the numbers for. Me, I did what you do when the instruments stop making sense. I put both hands flat on the tablecloth, the way you rest them before a flight, and I found my breathing. 60 beats a minute. Assess. Don't react. A waiter leaned in at my shoulder, holding a bottle of Cabernet over my glass like it might go off. "Do I keep pouring?" he whispered. I honestly didn't know. Because the general wasn't looking at my father anymore. He was looking at me, the daughter, in the $89 dress at the worst table in the room, and his face had gone somewhere I'd only ever seen on men climbing off a helicopter that shouldn't have made it back. 7 hours earlier, I'd been ironing that dress and lying to myself about why. My name is Aaron Halloran. I'm 34 years old, and if you ask my family what I do for a living, they'll tell you fondly, the way you'd describe a slow cousin, that I count blankets for the army. I let them. That part matters later, so hold on to it. I let them. My father is Victor Halloran. If you've ever flown private out of Nashville or Dallas or Teterboro, you've probably flown him Halloran Air. 41 jets, white as wedding cake, cabins the color of good bourbon. He started at 19 in a rented crop duster with a bank loan the size of a funeral, sprayed cotton until his hands shook, and clawed his way up through charters and cargo and leaseback deals nobody else could even read. I won't pretend that isn't its own kind of remarkable. It is. Here's what people forget. My father used to be a pilot. He works hard to help them forget. Somewhere around jet number 3, Victor Halloran figured out exactly what the sky was worth per seat, per mile, per minute of a rich man's time, and he never touched a yoke again. The sky is a marketplace. Aaron, he told me when I was 17 and reckless enough to say out loud that I wanted to fly. The only people who romance it are the people who can't bill for it. He has a line he loves. He leans back at the head of the table, swirls whatever's in his glass, and says Aaron's the only Halloran who ever flew for free. He says it the way other men say bless her heart. But when I was 10, before everything, he borrowed a friend's Cessna and took me up over Percy Priest Lake for 20 minutes. He put my hands on the yoke and his hands over mine and said, "Feel that? She'll tell you everything, if you listen." That is the only sentence my father ever said to me that I have never once heard him say about money. We never went up again. Fuel costs money, sweetheart. My mother left on a Tuesday in October when I was 12. I stood in the garage doorway, half in, half out, one sock on cold concrete and one on kitchen tile, and watched a yellow cab take her down the driveway and out of the story. She didn't look back. I've spent 22 years deciding that's because she couldn't. 4 months later, a postcard came. A casino in Reno on the front, gold letters, a lit-up fountain. On the back, in her small slanted hand, 4 words, "I'm sorry. Be brave." No return address. You can't answer a postcard that has no return address. I knew that. I was 12 years old and I knew that. And I wrote back anyway on a postcard of the Grand Ole Opry, bought with allowance money, addressed to nobody, mailed nowhere, kept in a shoebox. Then another. Then it was just a thing I did. It is still a thing I do. One postcard after every flight that matters, and some that don't. Dear Mom. Still here. There are 211 of them now, rubber banded in the inside pocket of my flight bag. I counted them once, on a night I don't talk about. The shortest one in the stack is 2 words long. We'll get to it. People assume I joined the army at 22 to spite my father. It's a good story. The truth is smaller. The army was the only outfit on earth willing to pay me to learn the thing he'd shown me for 20 minutes when I was 10. Flight school at Rucker. Blackhawks. A decade of them left me 2 souvenirs I never claim on any form. An L4 vertebra that files a complaint every time the barometer drops, and a thin turbine whine in my left ear that has never once clocked out. And then the job my family has never once asked a second question about medevac. Dust off. You fly an unarmed helicopter toward the sound of the worst day of somebody's life. You land on it, and you carry out whatever the day left. There's a ritual on my cruise. Before you lift with patients aboard, somebody reads the manifest out loud. Names if you have them. Numbers if you don't. Souls on board, 6. You say it on the intercom. The crew says it back. And for the rest of that flight, those souls are the only arithmetic that exists. My father keeps manifests too. His have billing codes on them. I met Danny Reyes 4 years ago in an elevator at Walter Reed, both of us holding gift shop carnations like men holding babies. He was visiting one of his old soldiers. I was visiting well. I have a habit of visiting. He was a ranger with a Tennessee drawl and a way of talking in short sentences with numbers in them. And by the 3rd floor he'd made me laugh, which annoyed me. And by the lobby he had my number, which annoyed me more. 3 months in, he was helping me move apartments when a green logbook slid out of a box. He picked it up to hand it back, and then he didn't hand it back. I watched him find the page. 14 March, 2018. The tail number. His face did something I'd never seen it do. You're 7-3, he said. Not a question. I was. He looked at that logbook for a long time. Then he said, I've spent 4 years trying to find you to say thank you, and you've been stealing my fries for 3 months. He proposed a year later, on a Tuesday, in my kitchen, while I was writing a postcard. No speech. No knee. He set the ring on the table next to my pen and said, add me to the manifest. So I did. 2 Januaries ago, at my father's house, we watched a playoff game the whole family arranged around his television the way staff arrange around a CEO. At the 2-minute warning, Halloran Air's first national ad ran. 60 seconds. Flags, runways. A voice like warm gravel talking about the country that makes men like Victor Halloran possible. And then, for 4 seconds, a photograph. A helicopter, nose down into a wall of brown dust the size of God, one rotor light carving a halo out of the dark. There was no caption. The tail number was unreadable unless you happened to know it. I happened to know it. Grant raised his beer and said, to the brand. My father said the agency had wanted $800,000 for the spot and he'd closed at $650. Everyone made the impressed sound. I went to the kitchen and checked on a pie that did not need checking. Hands flat on the counter. 60 beats a minute. When I came back, the game was on and nobody had noticed I'd gone. I told myself the photo was an accident stock imagery, some agency kid with good taste. I told myself that, and I ate my pie, and I said nothing. Remember that too. I said nothing. The invitation came in April, by email from his assistant. The Second Lift Foundation, a veterans nonprofit out of Nashville, was naming Victor Halloran its Patriot of the Year, in recognition of a $2 million transformational gift. Black tie. The Bellhaven. 280 guests. And one line at the bottom, in the assistant's cheerful font, Mr. Halloran kindly requests no uniforms at the family table. This is a civilian evening. I read that line 4 times. The room would be wall to wall with uniforms he'd paid good money to photograph. He just didn't want one sitting at his table. Danny read it over my shoulder and went quiet in the specific way he goes quiet. That night, watching me iron an $89 dress from the Clarksville outlets on the kitchen table, he said, "If somebody asks what you do." "What's my line?" "Logistics." He nodded slowly, the way he nods when he's swallowing an opinion whole. "And if it ever comes to it, one sentence, Reyes. And make it boring." "Copy." One boring sentence. He stole a mint off the counter. "Your aircraft." "Your call." I RSVP'd for 2. I always RSVP. 22 years of postcards to a woman with no address attendance is the last language I have left, and I am fluent in it. The invitation said 7 o'clock. The valet said good evening. The program said, well, we'll get to the program. We got to the Bellhaven 12 minutes early, because I get everywhere 12 minutes early, and we sat in the valet line in Danny's truck with the engine off, passing a bag of gas station mints back and forth like communion. Danny was in his dress uniform. The email had said civilian evening. Danny had said, I RSVP'd before the man said anything. Uniforms on the RSVP. I'd hate to make a liar out of it. Now he was practicing my last name in the rearview mirror, flattening it into 3 easy Tennessee syllables. Halloran. Halloran. Like I've said it at 40 tailgates. You've met my father twice. And both times he asked what I drive. He rattled the mint bag. Tonight I'll tell him the truth. 2 majors. 1 truck. I laughed, and it came out steadier than it was, and he heard both parts, because he hears both parts. He didn't say anything about it. He just moved the mints to the cup holder where I could reach them. If you ever want to know what being loved by a quiet man feels like, it's mints in the cup holder. The Bellhaven ballroom is the kind of room that makes you check your posture at the door. Chandeliers. 40-foot ceilings. A jazz trio playing money-colored music. And hanging over the dance floor, on 4 steel cables, a 1,943 Stearman Trainer Canary Yellow, propeller frozen at 10 and 4. Somebody's grandfather learned to fly in that airplane. Now it hangs in a ballroom where nobody looks up, an aircraft that will never fly again, polished to a shine and strung from the ceiling as Dacre. I looked up at it longer than I should have. Danny followed my eyes and said nothing, which is one of the several hundred reasons I'm marrying him. At 7:40, before dinner, the photographer gathered the family at the step and repeat the backdrop with the foundation's logo repeating behind you. So every picture is born a press release. My father in a midnight tux. Grant in something Italian. Alone, nobody asked where his wife was, which told you exactly how carefully nobody had been asking for months. Behind us, a waiter drifted past with a tray, and a woman in green asked him, "Is that the shrimp or the chicken?" And that is the sentence I remember best of all of them, because that's what the brain files next to the ones that hurt. The photographer waved me in. I stepped onto the tape mark between Grant and my father. My father's hand came down warm on my shoulder, and for exactly 1 heartbeat I was 10 years old over Percy Priest Lake. Just family in this one. "Sweetheart," he said. He said it warm. That's the part people never believe. So I need you to hear it. He said it warm, smiling for the camera, squeezing my shoulder as he steered me out of the frame, the way you'd move a chair. Apologizing to the chair. The photographer looked at me, then at his shot list, then back at me. "I'm sorry," I thought. "You're fine," I said, and stepped back off the tape like it was the edge of a helipad. Both feet. Clean. Danny materialized at my elbow with 2 glasses of something and handed me neither, because he knows I don't drink at altitude, and family is altitude. He looked at my father's back for 3 full seconds. Then he looked at me. "Your aircraft. Your call." I gave him the smallest no a face can make, and we went to find table 28. Table 28 was the last table before the kitchen. close enough that every swing of the double doors dealt me a bar of white light and a breath of dish steam. Our table mates, the Foundation's webmaster, a dentist who sponsors the golf tournament, and the dentist's wife, who told me my dress was brave. The centerpieces were little brass propellers. Somewhere out at table 1, my father laughed at something a senator's wife said, and the laugh carried the way money carries. At 8, the MC took the stage bright. Quick, a local news anchor doing her 1000th charity night. She welcomed us to the Second Lift Foundation's annual gala, and she explained the name for the newcomers. In a mass casualty evacuation, she said, the first lift takes the ones who can't wait. But somebody has to go back. The second lift is the promise that nobody gets left because the math got hard. Tonight, she said, every one of you is part of somebody's second lift. She introduced the board. Elaine Okafor, the chairwoman, widow of a Marine Master Sergeant, stood and waved once like a woman who'd rather be somewhere quieter. And then, our guest of honor, who will present tonight's Patriot of the Year Commander of Joint Task Force Operations in Helmand Province, 39 years in uniform, General Arthur Boone, United States Army, retired, a wall of applause. An older man at table 1 rose halfway and sat back down, and even the half-rise had parade ground in it. And if he looks familiar, the MC added, it's because our director of outreach is his son Tyler Boone, who swears he got the good looks from his mother. Laughter. Near the stage, a young guy with a beard lifted a cane in salute without standing. I clapped along and thought nothing of any of it. I want that on the record. I thought nothing of any of it. The programs were at every place setting. Heavy cream cardstock. Tasteful gold. I didn't open mine until the salads came. And when I did, I stopped being at a gala. The cover of the program was a photograph. A black hawk, nose into a wall of brown dust the size of a county. One rotor light cutting a halo out of the dark. Skids maybe 6 feet above a ground you couldn't see. You know your own hands. You know your own storm. Under the photograph, in small italics, for the unknown heroes. I turned it over. Fine print on the back cover. Photo credit. Department of Defense. Beneath that, small and tasteful, the way expensive things are. Program produced by Halloran Air. And nowhere not on the front. Not on the back. Not in 8 glossy pages the rest of it. Because that photograph has an official caption. And the official caption is 9 words longer than unknown. I set the program face down next to the bread plate. I opened my clutch. There is always a blank postcard in my clutch. Habit is habit, and I stopped apologizing for it years ago. This one was a Tennessee sunset I'd bought at a Love's truck stop for 60 cents. I uncapped a pen, and I wrote one line, and I put it away before Danny could read it. Dear Mom, I'm on the cover. Let me stop right here for 1 second. Friend to friend. If somebody ever built a frame just to keep you out of it, tell me in the comments where you're listening from tonight. You're in better company than you know. But hold that program cover in your mind. In a little while, a 4-star general is going to pick it up off a podium, in front of 280 people, and read out loud the 9 words somebody paid good money to crop off of it. He doesn't know I'm in that room. My father doesn't know who is. If you want to see what happens when those 2 facts meet at 9:47 p.m., that like and subscribe tell me to keep going because nobody in that ballroom saw it coming. All right. March 14th, 2018. We were the duty medevac crew at a forward operating base in Helmand Province that spring. Me in the right seat as aircraft commander. A co-pilot named Ojeda who chewed cinnamon toothpicks. A crew chief we called Bear, for reasons that were obvious when you met him. And Doc Kim, a flight medic with hands so steady you could have balanced coins on them at a dead hover. The 9 line came in at 4:12 in the afternoon. Ranger element in contact north of the river. Mass casualty. Urgent surgical. ×3. And weather the kind of weather that has a color instead of a name. A dust wall off the desert floor. 40 minutes out. Moving like a decision. The weather officer said the word hold. I have respect for weather officers. I asked for the launch anyway, and I got it, and we went. A brown-out landing is instrument flying 6 feet off the ground. The world goes the color of a paper bag. Your own rotor wash turns the earth against you, and you fly the last 10 seconds on the radar altimeter and on faith. We landed on the second try, in a farm field gone vertical, in the middle of somebody's firefight. They came out of the dust carrying their friends. A young captain with a voice like a gravel road ran the perimeter and ran the count, and if you've been paying attention, you already know his name. But I didn't. Not yet. Baron Doc Kim loaded 3 litters and 3 walking. I keyed the intercom. Souls on board, 6, the crew said it back. We lifted blind and ran south with the storm chewing at our shadow. 31 minutes to the Roll 2 surgical team. I'd like to tell you I remember that leg. The truth is I remember one thing, the radio, saying there were still 5 men on that field. 2 of them urgent. And the dust wall arriving. While they pulled the litters, command came up on the net very calm, very correct. Weather was now below minimums. 7-3 was not required to return. 7-3 was advised, in the strongest terms. I looked back at 4 empty seats where 6 souls had been. I keyed the mic. 7-3 copies all, I said. 7-3 is not leaving with empty seats. The dust wall took the sun at 5:19. We turned back north, into the dark. And that's where I have to leave it for a minute because at the Bellhaven, they were clearing the salads, and my father was walking to the stage. The live auction ended at 9:24, the last lot. A golf weekend. Went for the price of a decent car, and at 9:31 the MC said his name. And Victor Halloran took the stage to accept Patriot of the Year, to a standing ovation he received like weather he'd ordered. He gave the speech from the sweet spot of the stage which put him, all night, directly beneath the steerman. The only other pilot in that room, standing under an airplane he'd have written off as a loss, and he never once looked up. He was good. I want to be fair to him, because everything I'm about to tell you goes down easier if you think he's a cartoon, and he is not a cartoon. He talked about being 19 in a rented crop duster with more loan than airplane. He talked about this country as the only place on earth where a boy like him ends up with 41 jets. He put his hand over his heart at the right times. He gestured at the program on every table that photograph. Folks, those unknown heroes, that is what tonight is for, and 280 people touched the cover of my storm. And murmured, and had no idea. And then he found our table at the back. And he smiled the shoulder squeeze smile. And he decided to be funny. You know, every empire needs an heir, he said, tipping his glass toward Grant, and got his laugh. Ours has one, Grant. Stand up, don't be modest, applause. Grant half stood. Sat. And then, folks, my father chuckled, shaking his head with tremendous affection. Then the good Lord sent me ballast. Ballast, for those of you who don't fly. That's the dead weight you carry around to keep the books balanced. Laughter big. Warm, permission laughter. The kind a room full of nice people gives a rich man because the alternative is awkward. My daughter's back there, sweetheart. Wave my daughter counts blankets for the United States Army. He let it land. Only Halloran in history who ever flew for free. 280 people laughed at that. I need you to understand. They weren't cruel. They were dressed up and fed and slightly drunk and being led. That's all a room ever is. I did the weight and balance on my own body. Hands flat. Feet flat. Don't shift the load. Don't give the frame a reason to move. The kitchen door swung behind me and dealt me its bar of white light, and I looked at the little brass propeller in the centerpiece, and somewhere under the laughter I heard 4 words in a small slanted hand, the way you hear a beacon through static. Be brave. Okay, Mom. Working on it. Under the table, Danny's hand found my knee. It wasn't comfort. I know his comfort. This was a pre-launch check. Danny, I said very quietly, without moving my mouth. The way you learn to talk on a hot mic. I heard his chair slide back before I felt his hand leave. Daniel Reyes stood up at table 28 the way he does everything, no hurry. No noise, one smooth transfer of weight, like a man stepping onto a skid. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. A man standing alone in a seated room is the loudest thing in it. Sir. With respect, she doesn't count blankets. The laughter died in sections. Nearest tables first, the way a rotor spools down. My father's smile hung there, unsupported. He tried the recovery every rich man keeps in his breast pocket. Well, folks, this is why we love the army. Everything's classified. Even the blankets. A few people gave him charity in the form of a chuckle. Danny let it pass all the way through the room. Then he said his second sentence, flat as a checklist. On the 14th of March, 2018, in Helmand Province, she was the aircraft commander of Dustoff 73. To 270-some people in that ballroom, those were coordinates to nowhere. A date, a place, a string of syllables. I watched them not understand it. I also watched them understand the tone, which was the tone of a man reading from a stone. And then, near the stage, a chair scraped. A young guy with a beard was pulling himself upright against the table-edge cane in one fist, left trouser leg breaking wrong at the shin, the way fabric breaks over titanium. The outreach director. The general's son. He got his balance, and he looked across all that candlelight, and his voice came out 2 sizes too small for his shoulders. 7-3. Danny didn't answer. He just looked at me. So 280 heads looked where he was looking, and for the second time that night, I was the only thing in the frame. I would like to tell you I did something cinematic. Here is what I actually did. Hands flat, feet flat, spine at parade rest in an $89 dress, doing the weight and balance while a kitchen door dealt white light across my back. The general had already been handed the award. That's a detail I didn't put together until later, the choreography of these things. While my father was landing his ballast joke, the MC had passed General Arthur Boone the crystal, a 2-foot spear of glass with an eagle etched in it, so he could walk it over and complete the photograph. He was 4 steps into that walk when Danny said the date. The general stopped. He stood very still in the stage wash for a moment, a big man gone narrow. 39 years of posture holding up something that had suddenly tripled in weight. Then he crossed to the podium, and at 9:47 p.m., he set the Crystal Award down on it, glass on wood, a sound like a door latching. I can't present this award. He said it into the microphone but not to the room. He said it the way you cancel a launch. Then he turned. Major, finding me at the back without hunting, the way men like him find things. Would you stand? I stood. Reflex outranks fear. Your name, Major. Aaron Halloran, sir. You could hear the surname go through the room like current through water. Halloran. Halloran. My father's face did the math in public. I watched him arrive at the answer and refuse delivery. In March of 2018, the general said, I commanded the Joint Task Force in that valley. On the 14th, one of my ranger elements took a complex ambush north of the river. In weather we do not fly in. He paused. My son came home from that field 1 surgery at a time. I spent 6 days in a hallway at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center. Somebody was kind enough to get me a copy of a citation while I sat there. I read it every night. His hand touched the podium once. I stopped needing the paper. And then a retired 4-star general closed his eyes in front of 280 people and recited, in the flat federal cadence they write those things in, for extraordinary heroism in aerial flight. With the landing zone under effective enemy fire and conditions below weather minimums, the aircraft commander of Dustoff 73 voluntarily returned into brownout conditions, at night unarmed, and executed a second extraction. 11 souls were recovered. Her actions reflect great credit upon herself and the United States Army. He opened his eyes. He picked up the program from the podium and held it so the cover faced the room, my storm. In everyone's hands all evening. On every table. Under every wine glass. "This photograph has been on my desk for 8 years," he said. "It has an official caption. The official caption is 9 words longer than the version you are holding tonight." He let that sit. "Aircraft commanded by Captain Aaron Halloran, United States Army." Nobody moved. Over the dance floor, the air handlers kicked on for the 10 o'clock hour, and the old Stearman's propeller turned through one slow revolution, 10 and 4 to 10 and 4, the only thing in the building that dared. "There were 11 souls on that manifest," General Boone said. "One of them was my son." He told them the outside of it, what the ground saw, what a father learned in a hallway. "I'll give you the inside, because you've earned it, and because he couldn't." The son died behind the dust wall at 5:19. Going back in was instrument flying into a paper bag, Ojeda calling the radar altimeter in a voice you'd use for a bedtime story. Bear hanging half out the door, talking my wheels down onto a field neither of us could see. 5 souls came out of the brown on the second lift. I keyed the intercom. Souls on board, 5. Total for the day, 11, and the crew set it back, and we ran south with the storm eating our tail rotor's shadow. Sergeant Tyler Boone was on the left litter, leg wrecked, refusing to lie flat. Specialist Levi Marsh was on the right one. 20 years old. The gun team's ammo bearer, from Chattanooga. Doc Kim worked him the whole 31 minutes and never once changed expression, which is how you know. Tyler held Levi's hand across the gap between litters and talked to him about trucks, what he'd buy, what he'd tow the whole way south. Levi Marsh died 11 minutes out. We landed with 11 souls and 10 heartbeats. That arithmetic is mine. I've carried it every day for 8 years, and I'd already decided quietly, permanently. The way you decide things at 26 that a manifest that comes home short is not a thing you accept trophies for. In the ballroom, the general set the program down. 10 men are alive tonight because of the officer your program calls unknown, he said. My son is in this room because a woman decided that empty seats were unacceptable. That's when it started. Not on command, I need you to understand that, because I've seen rooms brought to their feet by a voice, and this was not that. Nobody called attention. Nobody said a word. My father had gotten his standing ovation at 9:31 ordered, $2 million in advance. This was not that either. This one nobody could invoice. Tyler Boone was already up. Then at table 11, a man in a wheelchair reached down and set his brakes that double click, loud as a rifle bolt in the quiet, and pressed himself as tall as his arms would take him. A woman 2 tables over came up on a cane, all the way, taking her time about it. An old man with a Vietnam-era pin on his lapel stood like it cost him a mortgage payment and was worth it. One by one. Prosthetics and canes and 2 gold star pins and a nurse in dress mess. Chairs easing back all over that ballroom like a tide deciding. At table 1, somebody's chair caught a wine glass on the way up. It went over and bled out across the white linen, and not one person in that ballroom reached for it. Above the chandeliers, rain had started on the skylight. That's how quiet 280 people can get quiet enough to hear weather arrive. The waiter, my waiter, the Cabernet man, set his bottle down on the tray stand with both hands, and stood too. The general looked at me across all of it. The microphone was still live. Major Halloran. Why is your name not in this program? 280 people, on their feet, waiting on my answer. I gave him the only one I've ever had. Because 1 seat came home empty, sir. He took that the way you take around a small stillness, absorbed. And then General Arthur Boone, who has buried more soldiers than I have flown, said this. Then you've been carrying it wrong, Major. 10 mothers opened their doors to good news. The 11th got to bury her boy instead of spending her life waiting for him. You gave her that. That is not a debt. That is the job done all the way to the end. I did not cry in front of 280 people. I am telling you where the line was. It was the tablecloth, and my two flat hands, and a woman's handwriting saying "Be brave," and it held. Barely. It held. My father chose that silence to save his brand. He came back to the podium with his hands already working the open palms. The chairman smiled and leaned into the microphone. "Folks, well. What you've that's Halloran blood, ladies and gentlemen." Elaine Okafor rose from table 1, crossed the stage without hurrying, and took the microphone out of his hand gently, the way you take scissors from a child. "The board will be revisiting tonight's award at our next meeting," she said to the room. Pleasantly. "Please enjoy dessert." At the sponsors' table, I watched 3 men in a row turn their own business cards face down on the linen, one after another, like a hand of cards folding. The general came down off the stage and started the long walk to table 28. My father intercepted him at midfield. "Hand out, camera ready, General Victor Halloran," and General Boone stopped, and looked at the hand, and answered him in a voice that wasn't amplified and didn't need to be. "You fly CEOs, Mr. Halloran, a beat. Your daughter flew home what was left of my son." Then he shook my hand. "It's an honor. Major and Tyler was there on his cane saying you kept coming back." "Ma'am," I heard the second turn. And somewhere in it the Foundation's photographer materialized, arranging a portrait for next year's program. And my father drifted into the edge of the shot the way weather drifts. And the photographer the same one. Same shot list. Same polite voice said, "Just the major in this one, sir." The flash went off. 40 feet up. A canary yellow airplane that will never fly again hung perfectly still on its cables. For once, so did I. Grant found me in the parking garage at 11:20, between 2 concrete pillars. Ty gone, holding his phone like it had died in his arms. My brother is 38 years old, and he stood there under the sodium lights and told me the thing I'd been telling myself couldn't be true since the 2-minute warning of a playoff game 2 Januaries ago. "Legal flagged it," he said. "When we licensed the photo for the campaign. There was a memo, possible family connection. Recommend review." He read your name. "Aaron." Grant looked at the concrete. He said, "Crop the caption." Cleaner story. A long breath. I signed the crop order. It was my campaign. The garage hummed, and the down ramp hissed with rain. Somewhere below us the valet stand was calling numbers. "He knew," I said. "Not a question. Just checking the weight of it." "He thinks tonight is a communications problem," Grant said, and laughed the way you laugh at a funeral, and then stopped. "I didn't know how to be your brother inside that house. I still don't." I believe him. That's the terrible part. I believe both things. That he signed it, and that he didn't know how not to. "Go home, Grant," I said. Not cruel. Just final. Some doors you close softly and they're still closed. In the truck, Danny handed me the mints without being asked. We sat in the exit queue behind 40 taillights. "You said 1 sentence," I said. I said 2. He watched the brake lights. Counted 'em twice on the way down. I looked at this man who had kept a promise for 4 years and broken it by the smallest violation the language allows. And everything I had held at that table came loose at last. Quietly, in a Ford. In a parking garage. Where it belonged. He put his hand over mine on the mint bag and drove us home. "Thank you," I said somewhere on the interstate. "Anytime, 7-3. Now here's the part of this story where I'm supposed to hand you the lesson, wrapped in a bow, and I can't quite do it, because I'm still arguing with myself about one thing, and you deserve to hear the argument. For 8 years I called my silence humility. I called it respect for Levi Marsh. You don't take trophy fees for a manifest that came home short. It sounds like honor. It wore honor's uniform. But sitting in that truck I made myself ask the question I'd been outflying since 2018. Was my silence a gift to the dead? Or was it a hiding place with a flag on it? Because the silence never guarded Levi Marsh. It guarded a cropped caption. Anonymous was just the altitude where nothing could reach me, including thanks I didn't think I'd earned. I don't have that fully solved. I'm 34. Ask me at 50. But that Tuesday, I did the thing I could have done 2 years earlier and didn't. I wrote to the Defense Department's imagery office and requested the full official caption be restored on every licensed use of the photograph. 4 sentences. I had spent 2 years telling myself it would cost me something enormous. It cost me 4 sentences. And I want to be precise here, because it matters. I didn't become somebody new that Tuesday. I just closed out a flight I'd left open for 2 years. Reading the manifest was always my job. I'd simply stopped reading one name off of it, mine. 10 days later, a FedEx envelope arrived from Halloran Air's outside counsel. Heavy paper. Inside, a licensing proposal. They wished to make things right. They wished to make me the face of the Freedom Campaign. The number had a 2, a 5 and 4 zeros in it, and a signature line with my name already typed under it, waiting. 20 years of watching my father taught me exactly what that envelope was. It was not an apology. It was a manifest with a billing code, and my seat finally had a price on it. I wrote one line across the bottom of their own cover letter and mailed it back. You can't license what you refuse to recognize. Ballast, by the way, since my father brought it up in front of 280 people, is not dead weight. I looked it up the night of the gala, sitting at my flight desk at 1 a.m, because I am exactly that kind of person. Ballast is the weight you carry on purpose. It's what keeps an aircraft level when the air turns rough. It's the reason you get home. He used that word on me for 20 years. He never once asked what it was for. 3 weeks later, the government charter contract my father had spent $2 million of patriotism courting went to a carrier out of Phoenix. I found out the way you find out things now, a headline, a shrug, Danny reading it off his phone at breakfast. I didn't celebrate. You don't celebrate weather. You just note the wind and fly your leg. The Foundation's board voted to leave Patriot of the Year vacant this year. Elaine says the Crystal Eagle is in a supply closet at the office, holding a door open, which she claims is the most work it's ever done. That fall, the Foundation wrote itself a new rule. Every photograph it prints carries its full caption, every name, every time. Elaine calls it housekeeping. I call it 9 words. The video, of course, got out a guest's phone, shaky, vertical, 40 seconds of a general's voice and a room standing up in sections. It went around the veteran pages for a week. I didn't watch it. Danny watched it 11 times and reports that he looks taller than usual. And then a letter came, in looping schoolteacher cursive, postmarked Chattanooga. I have to tell you about my stack first. 211 postcards, remember? The shortest one in the stack is dated March 14th, 2018, written in a tent at 1 a.m. with hands that had finally stopped. 2 words. Only 10. For 8 years, that postcard was the whole verdict. Court adjourned. The letter from Chattanooga was from Dana Marsh, Levi's mother. She'd seen the video. Some boy from his old platoon had sent it to her. She wrote 3 pages, and I will keep most of them for myself, but she gave me permission to share this much, so I will read it to you the way I've read it about 40 times since. The Army does tell mothers, even when programs don't. I have known your name for 8 years, Major. I used to say it in church. He came home to me because you went back into that dust, and I got to hold my son's hand at the graveside instead of holding a question for the rest of my life. I'm glad the world finally caught up to what the mothers already knew. I put her letter in the shoebox, under the rubber band, with the 211. It's the first thing in that box I didn't write myself. The Foundation asked me to take the stage at next year's gala. I declined the stage and took something better. 1 Saturday a quarter. Tyler Boone and I run a workshop for military families at the Second Lift Office. Coffee. Folding chairs. No podium. He introduces me as the taxi. I let him. My father has not called. In fairness, I have not called him. But 6 months out, Grant asked for coffee. 12 minutes. A diner off I-24. He didn't apologize, we're Hallorans. The word isn't load-bearing in our family. He slid a flat package across the table instead. The photograph, reprinted from the original file. Full caption. All 9 words. My name in small federal type. He'd signed the crop order once. This was him signing something else. I didn't say it was okay. I said thank you. Those are different sentences. And we both knew it. It went in the shoebox. Under the rubber band, the second thing in that box I didn't write myself. These days he texts sometimes short, careful, weather reports from a country I moved out of. I answer more than half now. That's honest too. And Reno for about a week after the video. I let myself check the mailbox the old way. The 12-year-old way. Bills, catalogs, a coupon for gutter cleaning. Reno stayed quiet. Some frequencies just don't answer. You keep the radio on anyway, and you fly your aircraft. Last Sunday I bought a postcard at the Loves off Exit 11 Tennessee Sunset. 60 cents. Same rack as always. I wrote it at my flight desk with the good pen. Dear Mom. They read my name out loud. And then, for the first time in 22 years, I filled in the address line. One word, Mom. No street, no city, no zip. I didn't mail it. I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk, next to my wings, where the flight schedule goes. Some letters aren't for sending. They're for proving you were there. And last Saturday, I rented a Cessna out of Smyrna near enough to the one a man borrowed for 20 minutes. 24 years ago, and flew Danny out over Percy Priest Lake in the late gold light. Somewhere over the water I put his hands on the yoke and laid mine over his. Feel that, I said. She'll tell you everything, if you listen. It's the only thing my father ever gave me that was true. So I kept it. I just changed whose hands it goes to next. Here's what I know now, for whatever it's worth to you. My father spent his life measuring people by what they could pay. I was trained to measure them by what they weigh and to lift anyway. Both of us read manifests for a living. Only one of us ever read the names. And the best revenge I ever got, you should know this. If you're out there carrying your own cropped caption, wasn't a contract lost or an award in a closet. It was 9 words of small print, restored to a photograph. It was reading my own name in the caption and realizing, quietly at my kitchen table, that I no longer needed him to read it. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end of this one. It took me 8 years and 212 postcards to learn that keeping yourself small doesn't keep anybody safe, it just keeps you easy to crop. And here's the last thing I know about manifests. Every family keeps one, whether they print it or not, a quiet ledger of who counts, and for how much. I spent 34 years trying to earn a line on a list my father was holding. You can't. The only manifest you will ever control is the one you read out loud yourself, names, not numbers, and your own name spoken just as steady as the rest. So let me ask you, and I'd truly like to know. Have you ever let your family believe a smaller version of you, just to keep the peace at the table? Tell me in the comments, and tell me where you're listening from tonight. If you know somebody who's been cropped out of their own story, a medic, a teacher, a daughter at the worst table in the room, share this one with them tonight. Not for the algorithm. For them. And if you carry people nobody claps for, if you know what it is to fly for free, type one word down below, manifest. I read every one. New stories premiere every day. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself out there. Keep your weight and balance honest, and the next time somebody calls you ballast, let them. Ballast is the weight that brings the aircraft home.